Now, Washington Mornings on the Mall. 105.9 FM. And AM 630. WMAL.
7:07 on WMAL, where Washington comes to talk. Brian Wilson, Larry O'Connor, joined on the line right now by our legal analyst, Joe DiGenova, a former U.S. attorney for the District of Columbia, and a man who knows a few things about how the law works or should work. And so, Joe, I'm really happy to have you because I've been dying to get a hold of you and have a conversation about the Attorney General of the United States and whether or not he did the right thing when it no doubt crossed his threshold that there had been an affair going on between the director of the CIA and this Paula Broadwell woman. It seems to me that you have to consider at least the possibility that if there is an affair going on, that the director of the CIA has opened himself up to possible blackmail, and if that is the case, it is a national security issue. However, it appears that Eric Holder did not look at it that way.
Well, first of all, good morning, Brian and Larry. Great to talk to you guys. And the answer is your question is well put, Brian. This cried out for notifying the president when the CIA director became obviously ensnared in a relationship. The problem that they have with their explanations about this is that they started out saying they looked at the emails because they were concerned ultimately about a national security breach. If that's the case, then the president should be told immediately along with the NSC and the White House counsel. They have subsequently said that it turned into a criminal investigation, which is why they didn't have to tell the White House and Capitol Hill. Those are inconsistent explanations. But you know what? Here's the problem. The Attorney General serves at the pleasure of the president. They won the election. Eric Holder is the equivalent of RFK to JFK, the brother of the president. He's covering for the president in a first of all, it's perfectly legal what they've done. It's just very bad government, very bad public policy. Now think about this. The President of the United States is the executive branch. He's the head of it. He is the chief law enforcement officer, not the Attorney General.
That's right.
He has a right to know everything about every case, whether it involves intelligence or criminality. So not reporting to him is certainly okay as a legal matter, but from a constitutional standpoint, let me just tell you something. This is purposeful ignorance to protect the president.
All right, so here's my other question. It has to do with the fact that after all of this became known, then, like the following Monday, we see the FBI go to Paula Broadwell's house in North Carolina and do a search and remove computers.
Yeah.
Why was that done so late in the game?
Well, because the Bureau is now in an untenable position. Mueller, from whom you have heard absolutely nothing,
Zippo.
Not one word from the FBI director. Now, remember what we did with Mueller. His term ended. His 10-year term ended last year. Then because they didn't want to, quote-unquote, waste time trying to find a new director, they reappointed him for another 10 years in total violation of the statute. But they just went, and the Republicans went along with this. So what you have now is Mueller, who secretly wants to be the director of Central Intelligence himself, is now betwixt and between. And he started something. He didn't. Now he has to finish it. This is so bad from a law enforcement and intelligence standpoint. The optics of this now, no matter what the motivations were originally, if they had simply told Congress, if they had simply notified the committees, none of this would be a problem. But the truth is, the director of the FBI decided he didn't want to get enmeshed in politics, so he kept it a secret. Nobody is going to tell me that the director of the FBI didn't suspect that this was a very serious possible intelligence compromise, and that's why Mueller is saying nothing. He's being silent. That's the way Hillary Clinton is being silent.
Yeah.
She was the ultimate authority about security for the Department of State and the consular officials and Ambassador Stevens. She has not said a word. It's Mueller and Clinton. This story is about Mueller and Clinton.
Former U.S. Attorney Joe DiGenova is our guest, and let's keep talking about Mueller for a minute here, because on this show on Thursday, Lanny Davis, former White House counsel, you know him well. Lanny Davis said that the real scandal here, from his perspective, is that initial prying into these private emails. As you stated, there was a suggestion that there was a national security breach. That triggered these extra invasions into privacy that normally wouldn't have been triggered unless there was a national security breach. Do you believe, Joe, from what you know, that there was enough evidence to suggest that there was a national security concern that justified prying into emails? And then the second question is, once it was determined there wasn't a national security breach, how then could they use the evidence that they discovered by pouring into people's private emails and then use that evidence to turn it into a criminal case? I thought you couldn't do that.
Well, first of all, the prying in initially makes sense. Not with that local FBI agent down in Florida. I don't care how much of a hero this guy is and how he was involved in some earlier terrorism cases. This was the equivalent of nepotism. He knew this woman. This was a personal favor. The fact that he hasn't been reprimanded and put on the sidelines by the FBI is disgraceful.
Did he abuse his position?
Absolutely. Absolutely, he abused his position. This never should have been undertaken. This is a local issue. If you're getting threatening emails, and these weren't even threatening emails, this was a cat fight going on the Internet. This had nothing to do with the FBI. This whole thing started by an improper intervention by an FBI agent down in Florida. After that, after they discovered the connection with Broadwell and Petraeus, there is a hint there of some serious problem. They had a duty to look at that. They also had a duty to tell Congress at that point, which they didn't do, but Mueller was protecting himself. Now, at that point, they have a legal right to be there. As much as you and I might not like it, and as much as our sense of privacy is just outraged at this, they do have a legal right to be there. Once they're there, and they see this, and they uncover the relationship with Broadwell, they've got to do something. They can't just stand there, because at that point, and as I said, no matter what they do after that, no matter how invasion of privacy it looks like, if they had told Congress, this would be a nothing burger. But the problem is that all of them created the problem of the appearance of political manipulation of the investigative process by not notifying Congress. And to watch Dianne Feinstein yesterday
I was going to ask you about that.
Was one of the most embarrassing performances by a senior senator I've ever seen. But you know what she said? She said she was explaining why Petraeus was in a funk and made this mistake. He didn't have a driver, he didn't have an entourage, and he was going home doing the dishes. She's got to be out of her mind.
Oh, my
He not
gosh.
only has a driver, he has an armored car, he has guys with SK-47s, they have rocket launchers in the car behind him. He has follow-up cars. He has a decoy car. He has armed guards at his house. This is insane.
Let me ask
what
you,
is she talking about?
I agree with you completely, but let me ask you about Di-Fi, because she's one of the leaders of this investigation, and as I understand, you know her a little, don't you?
I do. I like her, and I'm saying this
I'm asking you, but
nonsensical.
Is she the woman? Will she conduct an investigation, or will she allow politics to enter the fray?
Oh, I think politics has taken this over. She's in the rope-a-dope now for the administration. God bless her. She's a lovely lady, but you know what? This is not an investigation anymore. You know what? Elections do have consequences. The Republicans, because of the worst messaging in the history of the 20th century, lose more seats in the Senate. They keep the House by the grace of God. But this is now all political, and that's why the Democrats are going to try and change the filibuster rule at the beginning of the opening of the Senate. That's for another day.
That's another day.
This is all politics all the time right now. This has nothing to do with congressional inquiry.
All right. Well, we will take up that other topic, though, I promise you. Joe DiGenova, our legal analyst, thank you so much for joining us.
Happy
Thanks, Joe.
Thanksgiving.
You too.